T. It's in the name.
Welcome into the Helping Healing Humor with Ben and Travis podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about identity. We're going to leave it a little vague so that we have room to go in different directions and see where it takes us. But we're thankful that you're along for the ride, and we'll get to that conversation right after this important message about the Joy Rider. Hey friends, we've got something really special to share with you today, a brand new children's book that's all about faith, family, and finding joy in the middle of life's challenges. It's called The Adventures of Ben and Travis and the Joy Rider. This heartwarming story follows a big brother in a wheelchair who uses his creativity, courage, and a whole lot of love to help his little brother and cousin overcome life's obstacles. Together they show us that joy isn't about what you have, it's about how you choose to face the ups and downs of life. This book is full of fun, adventure, and hope. It's perfect for bedtime stories, Sunday school libraries, or as a meaningful gift for the kids in your life. Plus, it's a great way to start conversations with your family about resilience, compassion, and faith. Pre-orders are open now, and when you order early, you'll be one of the first to get your hands on this inspiring story. Just head over to benandtravis.com/books. That's benandtravis.com/books and pre-order your copy today. Give your kids a story that will make them smile, laugh, and believe in the power of joy. I'm Travis Creasy, pulpit minister at Westgate Church of Christ in Dothan, Alabama. That is all-pro counselor with three-quarter counseling, Mars Hill Bible School, and Highland Park Church of Christ, Ben Hayes. How's it going, Ben? You've been frosted over?
We have been, but it's not been so bad that we couldn't get out a little bit today. There was really nothing to play in, but believe you me, Cypress found a way to go outside and hang out with neighbors and play in the dust that came last night. We got a little bit of a dusting last night, but everything's good. Will Myhan is also with us, a youth minister at Highland Park Church of Christ, Bible teacher at Mars Hill Bible School as well, and helper with Walk for Water. I don't know what your official title is, but how you doing?
I'm doing well. I had to ask you what the weather was because I haven't even looked outside yet today. And it's 1:00 in the afternoon, but ready for it.
It's a good life.
That's right. The youth minister life. Don't go into preaching, guys. Go into youth ministry. It's the way it works. Now I'm just waiting for it to get above freezing. I'm ready to, as Lindsay says, about a day in the house drives me nuts. So I'm ready to start moving around and seeing some things. But I guess the rest is always a good thing.
I mentioned as we got prepped for the podcast, what little prep we do for this podcast, that we had talked last night, talked a little bit about John 1 and some of Ben's sermon series he's doing. And we had kind of a Bible study online live, shared it in the Facebook group, Ben and Travis Facebook group. If you hadn't joined there, you should do that. We send all kinds of content. It did give me a little COVID feel. We did that a couple of times during COVID. Yeah. But it was good. Check it out. I think I shared it on the Instagram. By now it's probably gone though, because those stories only last for 24 hours. But you can find it on Facebook. I think I shared it on our X, formerly known as Twitter account as well. But it was good talking to you guys, and of course Carson jumping on and keeping us young. But today I did want to talk a little bit, and once again, as I mentioned in the intro, identity. As a minister, I think I've heard it more in the college age, or maybe just a little out of college. And certainly college is a time of transition where people are trying to figure out who they are, what they want to do. And there might be a little anxiety in trying to figure all that out. And then you're going one way, and then you're 2 years into college and you're like, wait a minute, I don't want to do this. I want to do that. And to some degree, that doesn't change a whole lot. I think we kind of project that you get to this point where, oh, this is what I'm going to do, and there's no more uncertainty. And I don't think that's true. I think that's a falsehood, because there's all kinds of uncertainty with life. And certainly we would say that identity starts with your trust and your faith in God and Jesus. But we also know that the world may not be very receptive to that at times. And so the temptation is to maybe not identify with that as much.
Yeah, and it's something where I think people struggle with identity all through their life. I do see where, and especially as you said, as those transitions happen, so much right now of my identity is wrapped up in my kids. And, at some point in time, you sort of lose your identity a little bit more, and it becomes you're just Jackson's dad or Destin's dad or Bransley's dad or, whatever. And you kind of start losing some of that. And then that becomes the identity that you have. And then they graduate and they leave. Mine never will, because I have so many of them. I'll still have kids when I'm 80, I feel like, in the house. But some of you guys, y'all are going to go through that time a little quicker than me, probably, where your kids move out. And then all of a sudden, you're trying to rediscover a little bit of your personal identity, because everything was chasing, a ball around or chasing school around or whatever that they're involved in. So I think it's almost a lifetime struggle, from whatever your identity was in middle school, high school, college, to parenting, to, retirement. So
I feel in our climate today, and I've thought about this a lot, Travis, you texted this earlier in one of our text groups, is I feel like I've got to identify on one side of the aisle or not, even politically, with just the landscape of where things are on a national scale, things that have happened in the past couple of weeks. And it's almost like I'm sitting here trying to figure out what is okay for me to say. And then it's, should I say something or should I not identify with any of it? And I think that even as a Christian, I'm not afraid to identify as a Christian. I pray that I'll always feel that way. But identifying as a Christian in different political landscapes, it's like I don't want to say the wrong thing, or I need to say the right thing. And it's one of those where I almost just posted, hey, remember Jesus said love everybody. And it's like, is that okay to say? Is that going to tick people off? Am I hurting, my testimony, we could say, as a Christian, by saying something? And I think just in my landscape as a 36-year-old, I'm trying to guide, maybe I guess is the word, guide teenagers or help teenagers in their relationship with God. But it's, well, what can I say? Because I don't want to say something to where they'll no longer listen to me. And so I even think as a Christian, it's hard at times to identify, and maybe I'm sounding dumb. I don't want to sound wrong in that I don't want to identify with Jesus, but saying the right thing or identifying with the right thing sometimes either helps me with Jesus with people, showing them who Jesus is, or it hurts me. And I find myself at times struggling to go, all right, what's right here? And I know what's right and I know what's wrong, but in the political landscape, what does that look like? So I think there's even times, even when we're confident in our Christianity, it still can be stressful, to find, because I know at times all of us have said, hey, if I post this, do you think that's okay? Did it come off the right way? Or am I sounding too far one side or the other? And so I think it's just a huge topic that even in our confidence of who Jesus is, we still struggle.
Where do you feel like we struggle in discovering identity? Like, what do you think are some of the barriers for figuring out exactly who we are, or maybe that give us a wrong impression of who we are? You ever thought about that?
You see these things, and I'm pro evangelism. I'm not evangelistic enough, but we see evangelism training, and I'm all for the training. But hopefully, in that evangelism training, we have kind of what Will's talking about, compassion training. I need compassion training. And I don't know about y'all, but I read Facebook posts, and for some reason, my brain translates those as all yelling. Like, you couldn't put it in all caps and it yell more, Yeah. And I've really tried to adjust how I read things, and try to find something to be compassionate about and their perspective. A lot of my prayer is, God, make me angry about the things that you're angry about. Make me urgent about the things you're urgent about. Make me concerned and compassionate about the things you're concerned and compassionate about. Because my response to, I'm sure that the response to people, the things that we say or we post, but my response is I already know what this person thinks and what they believe because they've been yelling at me on Facebook, all caps. And so I just blow by what they post, right? And so I miss the thing I probably should be compassionate about because they're yelling and screaming all the time. And there are people who, it seems like their desire is not to be at peace with everyone, right? And I can be guilty of being lazy, trying to find the gray areas, not so I can show how I love them and have compassion, but the gray areas so I can be lazy, see that's wrong. That's the wrong take. And really all you need is a sentence to do that, whether it's somebody on the right or the left, or whatever brand of Christianity that you have. And so I think it's generous assumptions. This person is sharing, that's a good old Lois May's phrase there, generous assumptions. This person is sharing from their heart. And I'm going to generously assume that's where that's from. And even if I don't agree with it, this person is very excited about it. And I remember we went to a 7-on-7 passing camp at Alabama back in the Mike Shula days. And it's a 7-on-7. It's practice. It is a tournament. It is competition. And there was just a coach out there, buddy, and he was jacked to the ceiling about 7-on-7, fired up, yelling, screaming. Nothing bad, nothing wrong. He wasn't being degrading. But I was sitting beside Mike Shula, and Mike, probably one of the reasons he got let go is he was more like a player's coach. He didn't get fired up about a whole lot of anything. And I just remember him leaning over to me and going, man, that guy is fired up. And that phrase I use when I read a lot of Facebook stuff, like, man, that person is fired up. And hopefully don't use that in a way to just negate whatever they're saying.
Yeah.
And so I guess I kind of go into it and go, okay, let me find the truth here. And then, Lord, what am I in my identity identifying with you? What is true and what can I change about it? Like what can I gain from this person's perspective, even if I find myself on the opposite side of it?
Well, that kind of goes back to that question that I posed, and that is like, what are some of the things that maybe get in the way of, or that we struggle to get by? And I think it's kind of what you're saying there. Like sometimes for people, it's like, this is my worst mistake, and I have a hard time ever getting past that identity. I'm the one who did this thing or made this mess up. And I mean, I think in the culture we're in today, that cancel culture kind of deal, that happens a lot, where it's just really hard to get past an identity. You think about some of these actors, that play, Steve Urkel, or, some of these characters that you're like, yeah, they have a hard time getting out of that character or moving on because everyone knows them as that, Carlton off of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, some of those kinds of things, but also, and sometimes it's those strongest talents that we have, those things that we've gotten good at, and we're just known for that one thing. Some struggle that we're in, some issue that we have had, a health event or whatever. It's just hard for us not to get really focused in on something that has happened to us rather than who we are. And I think sometimes even people who struggle on a mental health level with things like post-traumatic stress, or even with a diagnosis of some sort, I really try as a practitioner not to make someone a diagnosis. Like if they may have a mental health disorder, you may have a physical disorder, but that is not who you are. That is a piece of you, that is a part of you, but it is not who you are. It's not at the core of who you are. And so, I'm not, quote, bipolar. I'm not, post-traumatic stress. I'm not a depressed person. I have depression, or I have anxiety, or I have these things, but they're not the whole of who I am. And I think so many times we get really struck, and it goes back to the same thing you're saying. I may vote Democrat or Republican, or I may have a certain team that we cheer for, or whatever the case is, but it's still just a piece of me, and it's not the full picture. And if we are not careful, we draw those dividing lines with each other based on these identities that aren't true identity.
I think one of the barriers that you talk about too with identity is no matter what you identify with, you're going to bring about and find conflict. And I think so many times, like with our teenagers, it's I don't want to identify with anything because I want to fit in with everything. And in doing so, you find even more issues. It's almost like when I float to everything and I believe in everything and I'm okay with everything, or I'm going to follow whatever ideology is out there. Well, at some point you're going to find conflict there too. And if you just would have went ahead and identified with what you knew was right in the very beginning, then you probably would have felt better about who you are as a person, because it's something that you actually do believe in. But yet in working with teenagers every day, I just see floaters, and then the floaters get upset with this group. So then they float over here, and then they float over here, and then they keep floating, and they've never actually found anybody to do life with, because they went over here for a minute, ticked off that group, or got ticked off at them, floated to the next group, same thing happens, and then you find yourself completely alone. And I think almost we worry about, am I going to identify with fill in the blank, whatever it may be, because that's what I know is right, or that's what brings me joy or happiness, and I'm good with that? Or am I going to just sit here and identify with everything and never find any true fulfillment in whatever it is that I believe in? And I think, Lindsay will tell you, she took me to Hamilton, the Broadway show, and I love it. I love the story. It's kind of cool, just the rap and all that, good music. And Aaron Burr, it's like Hamilton gets so mad at him because he says, if you don't stand for anything, or if you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for anything. And then he finds conflict everywhere he goes, and it's like, who's remembered? Well, Hamilton, right? He's the one that actually established something because he believed in it, versus, Burr did some good stuff, but it's still, there's a tarnish there. And I see that a lot in the lives of our teenagers every day. It's like, if I commit to this, it's going to bring about too much conflict. So I'm not going to commit to it. And I'm going to try to find my identity in 1,000 other things. And then I find no joy and happiness in my life because I've not really identified with anything. And it kind of goes back to what you're saying. Now I don't even know who I am. And I think that brings about a lot of issues. Then as a young person grows up and they still have no clue who they are.
Yeah. We live in a right now. Like you have to clarify your position on everything right now. Mm-hmm. And I think we both all have intimated, however old we are, being the elder statesman of the group, that it really, it's a fluid situation. I've seen several ways of putting it, but silence is compliance, and it's less than 24 hours after an event. And it's like, no, it's quite okay to pump the brakes. I mean, even if I identify with Jesus Christ and Christianity in the scriptures, there are things at 44 that I don't agree with 20-year-old Travis, And so, something that is the bedrock of my existence has changed. And I think there's so much to, you got to clarify now. And that's a dangerous from any perspective in your life, right? I need 1,100 multiplied by 500. Tell me now. What's the likelihood of you being right.
Yeah.
Probably, if you're me, I'm terrible at math. I wouldn't get it right with 20 minutes to figure something out like that.
Well,
So I think it's in the devil, right? There's a part of that that's like, this is a way to stir up division, and we let our emotions, and I'm not against emotions, but man, I have just got to that point at my age of, man, let's get the details. Let's get the facts. But there are aspects of it that are sad, and we can be sad about, right? Yeah.
But so much of identity, one of the biggest struggles with it is living for approval. I've got to get some approval from somebody. And I think the thing that we live in today is a lot of people who are posting these things are posting them. If we're talking about posting on social media, they're posting things for approval. There's things that, hey, I want people to tell me that I'm doing good, or I want all these likes so that I can get paid or whatever. So there's a lot to going ahead and throwing things out there as quickly as you can and getting as much, likes and clicks and whatever else. And then we'll find out the details, but this is going to get me, some attention. And so that's where we have to be careful is like, think about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, if an event happened, I could disagree with that event, but I'm not going to have every person I know and don't know isn't going to know my stance on it. But because of social media, now it's like I've got to identify with this one thing or this one event in a certain way immediately because it's so important. Because that's what our world is. And it's like you said, pump the brakes. I want to know the details, and I'm not saying one thing is good or one thing is bad. I'm opposed to violence and hurting people and all of those kinds of things. And I think all of us are. But I kind of want to know the details before, I get too far into it. And I think that's smart for all of us when we start thinking about who we are, because, one of the things that Paul talked about was, I want to become all things to all people. And so I don't like to get into a whole lot of the political discussions. I don't like to get into a whole lot of even the sports discussions sometimes, because I want to be able to look at my brothers and sisters in Christ and have a relationship with them without it always being tainted by athletics or politics or any other number of things that divide us. We just have a tendency to find divides, and I don't want that. I think division in and of itself is probably the one thing that we're trying to not have. We've got enough of that. So, when it comes to my identity, who I am at the core, I think all of us would identify that Christianity, that I'm a Christian, and that's kind of my number one. But, we've talked about this a lot, where my decisions are based upon my priorities, and my priorities are based on my values. And so I've got to determine, what are my values? That's really where my identity is at. I read one quote that simply said something like, identity is not something you perform, but it's something you receive. I think that's kind of an interesting way of seeing it, is like, it's not all about what I do, but about who I am, what I've already received. And I think as Christians, we can all go, well, that tracks, because we've received something from God, and we have this place with Him. And so many times we're searching and digging and fighting and trying to figure out our identity, and God's probably up there like, hey, I've already decided this for you. This is who you are.
Yeah, I think of how much we kind of bridged the gap between analog and digital, and there's some of this that overwhelms me to come out on one side or the other. I can't even imagine, like Will was talking about, my kids, your kids, Ben, that have never lived in a world that wasn't digital. And where so much of your self-worth is determined by who you run with. And, I had a bully till 3:00, and then I was done. He's not going to reach me. I'm not going to think about the bully till the next day at school. And now because of cell phones and email and text messages. Like, they have more of the ability. And I guess I just go back to John chapter 10, which you'll get to in your sermon series, I'm sure, where Jesus talks about, I've given you life and life abundantly, but the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And so if the outcome is kill, steal, or destroy, there's something diverted in there. And I think at the end of the day, when those things happen, we can collectively mourn and say something right there is amiss. And I think that's what people are getting at. Like, whatever the outcome, if somebody has lost their life, something has been stolen, or something has been destroyed, that is not the outcome that we're looking for. And there is nuance, tremendous nuance. And once again, why I believe and am thankful for a God who knows all the details. And I just hope that he opens my eyes to see it the way he sees it, and to be compassionate and mourn with those who mourn, rejoice with those who rejoice. Will, you got anything else before we jump to the question to wrap this up?
Be the parent that takes the cell phones away. Speaking from the youth minister, man, it's killing our kids, and it's killing them, especially in the topic of identity. Or at least just know what they're doing. Talk to them, because you would be amazed at how many of our teenagers, even over the past, not just like teenagers at Highland Park, but at Marseille and ones we've been around, man, they're hurting. And I think a lot of it is because they are so stressed about like what they have done, what they're currently involved in, and just how that compares to finding an identity in Jesus. And I'm a huge proponent of, man, the more distractions we can take away, the better they can find, what they need. So, be that parent. You'll be, they'll be thankful, and they'll love you for it. They may not like you right now, but they'll love you for it. That's a big thing.
All right. The question of the day, the one I saw first was, which one of your friends is the most likely your therapist? And that's kind of an easy answer. The man, the myth, the legend, Ben Hayes himself. I'll throw this out here. I'll give a couple, right? Like, which part of your life is the most mysterious? Do you need to be more optimistic or realistic? Or what's your biggest daily struggle? And if you got guts, what annoying behavior of yours do you blame your mother for? Whichever answer you'd like to give, I won't make you give one for each, but
I'll blame my mother for one.
Okay.
And she won't ever listen to this anyway. But we have recently been talking about this in my house, and I have it, and my daughter has it, Destin. And I even called her Nadine this morning because she was acting like mom. But it's this inability to be still. Like, I have no ability to be still. Like, I hate these snow days, because if I can't get out and play in it, it's driving me crazy. I'm not a lay around the house kind of guy. Like, I'm always walking around trying to do something. And if I'm not doing something, I'm eating something. So it's like, I got to have, something going on. And I think I get a lot of that from my mom. That's probably also one of my secret struggles, is not being able to slow down. So those probably merge together. But I think that's probably the one I would call out.
Well, any of those strike your fancy?
I think, I don't know that it's from mom, maybe from mom and dad, but Lindsay gets sick of everything like turning into a religious conversation. Like, not a negative, towards, she's not being like negative towards what we're doing. But she's like, for the love of everything, can you go just talk to your parents without getting in an argument about church? I was like, this is not an argument. This is iron sharpening iron. That's one right there that probably, it pays off later down the road, I think. But, it's like, wow, we just had Bible class, worship, and now we're still talking about this again. And it's usually not just it's usually an argument here or there. So it's not just like a calm, thing there. But, and then I would say that I just have a pretty mysterious life outside of Marseille and Highland Park. Like, I don't think that Lindsay even says, she's like, you're just a really weird person. and you're just kind of unique. So I'm just kind of curious, like, I don't know. I would be curious to know what people actually think about me, because I think that would be interesting and fun. Because I say I'm an introvert. Lindsay says I'm a liar. But I think I love to go be by myself. And I don't know what it is, but I just kind of like to go ride around, go walk somewhere. Just kind of, I enjoy going and riffing where a lot of people have no idea who I am, just to kind of get away. So I'd say those two probably.
What about you, Travis?
It's kind of the mysterious part. People don't know about this Ben and Travis gig on the side here, and that's kind of fun. But I think what's your biggest daily struggle, and do you need to be more optimistic or realistic? I think those two questions go together. I think most people would look at me and go, well, you're an optimistic guy. And I certainly project that, I guess, when people see me at church. But, it's kind of that balance of being both and finding a good balance. Got a lot of cynicism. You guys get that in the text group more than anybody else gets it. But it's kind of one of those things that I'm fearful that I'll cease to be able to be moved. And I think that's a big aspect of Jesus. Will mentioned Jesus wept. The more and more I read that text, I think it's from frustration, which I can totally connect with. Right. Yeah. There are just times I want to just weep for humanity itself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think just our discussion today, I've got so many people, and it's not necessarily a balancing act. I think it's not as difficult as we sometimes make it out to be, but I wear it as a badge of honor that I love and care for so many people with so many different beliefs and backgrounds, and to connect with them at some level. And I guess the mysterious part is I do have a deep desire to connect with people, and not ostracize them. But that also turns into not really standing for anything sometimes. And so I guess I'm worried, concerned that I don't stand up for much. But I guess my prayer is that I stand up for the things that matter to God. So, well, I appreciate it, guys. Went a little long, probably because I went a little long myself. But you guys are awesome. I appreciate you. You're good folks.
We're all ministers, so we have the gift of gab at times. So we all contributed to going long in it today. So
appreciate it.
Have a good one.
Thanks for being with us for this episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Be sure to download our free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living, at benandtravis.com and receive all of our Helping Healing and Humor extra content directly in your inbox. We look forward to having you join us at the same Ben and Travis time, same Ben and Travis channel.